With me now, Shaniqua McClendon, Vice President of Political Strategy for Crooked Media, and former Congressman from Pennsylvania, Connor Lamb. And glad to see you both. So, Shaniqua, Black voters did overwhelmingly support Harris. Although there was a gender gap, Black women backed Harris at 91%, but Black men just gave her 77% of their vote. Bernie Sanders and others have argued that Democrats have lost working class voters. But then you reposted something on X saying, are Black voters not the working class? How are the economic messages reaching us but failing to reach others? So explain that. Do you disagree with the premise it was the economy, or was it the messaging that just didn't reach who it needed to get to?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we do have a really fractured media. So a lot of Vice President Harris's messages ultimately did not make it to the people they needed to make it to. But on this conversation about whether or not it was economic anxiety or race and misogyny that played a role here, I think we have to understand that our economic outlook and where we are is really tied to our identity. There's no way that you can separate those two things. I'm a Black woman, if I'm being sexually harassed at work, that means it's hard for me to be in my work environment, or I might be retaliated against for reporting that. That is blocking me from economic gain. If I'm a Black or brown person who's not able to access housing because of racial discrimination there, that is blocking my economic opportunity. But I think the other part of this is on what people feel like is the reason that they are not striving economically. There are a lot of people in this country, because of a lot of right-wing media, because of a lot of Republican politicians who have told everyone, especially white people, that the source of their economic grievance are migrants who are crossing the border, that a lot of men are not able to access opportunity because of women, that affirmative action has given people of color too much opportunity at their expense. And so when the core premise of why they believe they don't have economic opportunity is to blame other people, I think all of those things are tied together. But that is something that is less likely for Black people to subscribe to, because we are typically at the bottom of the barrel when we're having these conversations.
Connor, Senator John Fetterman, whom you ran against in the 2022 primary for the Senate seat there, said those who pushed Biden to drop out should own the outcome of the election. But then he also said he doesn't know if it was a winnable cycle for Democrats at all. So what lessons should Democrats take from this? And was Harris potentially a victim of circumstance, given the extraordinary nature of her whole candidacy?
Well, the way that I look at it is I always, when I was representing people, tried my best to take them at their word. And throughout the campaign, I would talk to different people I know who are not political, and they had voted for both Trump and Biden in the past, and they were kind of clearly up for grabs this time. And what you kept hearing people say is, I know what I'm getting with Trump. And what they usually meant by that was like that there's a job that people wanted done. And a lot of what the campaign was about was arguing about which jobs should be done. What I see in the election night results is the jobs that people wanted done are to control the border and guarantee that there won't be another outbreak of inflation. Those were the two major ones. And there's other things like crime, and people talk about gender. But I think border and the inflation were clearly the two biggest. And if you think about it in terms of jobs being done, I think that could actually be a source of hope for the Democrats, because we are the party that tries to talk about government as a force for good, and we try to take pride in, managing and running the government effectively. If it's not all about identity, which it certainly looks like it's not, given that almost every identity group, shifted toward Trump, and it's about getting the job done, that should be our strength, and we can spend the next couple of years trying to, figure out how to do that again.
So there's now, Shaniqua, a debate on how Democrats proceed to sort of Trump-proof the country and judiciary. Where do you think the focus needs to be? And should Democrats be pushing their limits while they still can?
Absolutely. I think one thing that we could take from the Trump playbook is that when you have control of the government, you should do what you're able to do. And one big distinction between Democrats and Republicans is that when Democrats have power, they are working to create progress for people. They're not working to amass power for themselves, for their friends, and for billionaires and corporations. And so we have a chance right now, while we have the Senate, while we have the White House, to do something. And so whatever, if you care about this country, you will do all you can to protect all of us. There's a lot of people who did not vote for Donald Trump who are going to be impacted very negatively. And so I do think it's on Democrats to do as much as they can right now to make sure those people are protected.
So, Connor, let me ask you about Politico, which is reporting that career lawyers at the Department of Justice are, quote, terrified and considering leaving before Trump follows through on his threats. If they don't, they're concerned they'll be replaced with loyalists. And a reminder that Trump's first term, quote, ended with a stunning showdown between Trump and nearly all of his DOJ appointees as they resisted his attempts to cling to power. You were a lawyer and served as assistant U.S. attorney in your home city. So how worried should they be? And how worried should the country be?
I think this is one of the largest areas of concern for the Trump administration. And I think the country should be very worried. Trump has indicated through his actions that he thinks the DOJ is his personal law firm. And he's really the first president in American history to behave that way. Most people at least try to preserve some separation between politics and the rule of law, because they know that's what most Americans actually want. He doesn't believe that. His first term demonstrated that. And so if I were still in the Department of Justice, I know I would be thinking a lot about leaving, because I just don't think he believes in the basic premise of it. My hope is that some good people will remain. And it's not so much about resisting or frustrating him as I think it is about standing up for what that department is really about, no matter whether a Republican or a Democrat is in charge. And that's about protecting people by prosecuting criminals, but doing so within the constraints of the Constitution and the rights that every American has to have. That's really not a political thing. It never has been. And so my hope is some of those people will be able to stay there and educate the new administration about that.
Okay. Former Congressman Conor Lamb and Shaniqua McClendon. Sorry about that. Good to see you both. Thank you much.